let's bring in Marwan Bishara, who's our senior political analyst. Marwan, the goings-on, toing and froing in New York, quite interesting, isn't it? The vote was due to take place this morning, New York time, then it was pushed forward several hours, and now it's been brought back again, going to take place in less than an hour, apparently, now, unless it changes again. What's going on?
Well, there's clearly a lot of behind-the-scene pressures on the Biden administration to at least abstain, like it did last time, because the urgency of the situation is becoming intolerable, as portrayed by the UN Secretary General, both by calling for the meeting and in his speech. The unraveling of genocide in Gaza is becoming truly unbearable, and it's exposing America's lack of credibility on this issue, the way it's blindingly following in Israel's footsteps without acting like the superpower it is, in the sense that it does have legal, moral, strategic, diplomatic, and other responsibilities. It also has responsibility towards the American people. I mean, let's all remember that that some 70% of the American people are not happy with the way Biden is managing the war in Gaza. I mean, imagine. I mean, he's in an election year. He's not just that the international community opposes the way America stands alone, basically, in its blind support of Israel's war crimes in Gaza. The American public opinion, in its majority, does not support Biden's blinded support to Israel and the continuation of war in Gaza. So what the international community is asking, what the majority of the General Assembly is asking, what all the Arab and Muslim majority countries are asking, what a good number of European countries are asking, is for a ceasefire. They're not asking for, you know, end of the occupation, as they should, right? The end of ethnic cleansing, the end of the dispossession of the Palestinians, the end of Israel's nuclear, power status. They're just asking for a ceasefire after 60 days of non-stop bombardment that's been compared to, one, the Allies' bombings of German cities during Second World War and the German bombings of London cities during World War. And those happened over 2 years. Now we're talking about 2 months of comparable bombings of Gaza. So what the international community, what apparently the majority of the UN Security Council members are asking the United States to do, is not to move on with Israel to the dark side. It's just simply stop the war.
Right. So US isolated on this. I think it's worthwhile listening to the US spokesman again, to what he said to the UN, and then we'll have another chat afterwards.
And as of today, Hamas continues to pose a threat to Israel and remain in charge of Gaza. That is not a threat that any one of our governments would allow to continue to remain on our own borders, not after the worst attack on our people in several decades. For that reason, while the United States strongly supports a durable peace in which both Israelis and Palestinians can live in peace and security, we do not support calls for an immediate ceasefire.
That's Robert Wood, and curious because he was talking about our people and our borders.
And just before that, when he talked about, any member of states would not accept any such threat on our borders, but Israel is not dealing with just our borders, dealing with the occupied territories on its borders. It's occupied territories for 56 plus years. So the people in Gaza are occupied, under siege, and most of them are refugees from areas that are today Israel. So this is not just the United States dealing with Mexico. This is the United States dealing with, occupied Iraq, for example, right? But this is on its borders and its occupied territories. Second thing is, when he starts confusing our people with their people, calling their people our people, that just got to tell you that this is the culmination of 2 months of American officials parroting Israeli officials, repeating one soundbite after another, deceptive soundbites that the Israelis have come up with, and Americans blindingly doing that. And this is just the deputy ambassador. I mean, what about the American president? Why has the American president been parroting Netanyahu's lines and lies? Everything from the very beginning of the decapitation of babies to weaponizing the rape of Israeli women, to talking about things like what is happening in Gaza today is self-defense, when we all know that there is no such a right of self-defense in occupied territory. So when the American president himself continues to parrot nonstop, you won't be surprised when you hear the deputy ambassador going like, our people, their people. I'm not sure it's our people, their people, as if Israel is the 51st state of the United States.
How unusual is it in the context of US backing for Israel for this kind of support and backing to go on for so long, given the parlous state of affairs in Gaza right now?
You know, the best example of all examples that have to do with this kind of unconventional war is the 1982 invasion of Lebanon, right? Reagan was one of the staunchest supporters, at least until then, among all American presidents. He was a staunch supporter of Israel. He considered Israel a strategic asset. And as Mike Hanna said in one of the packages, that it's under him, although it's also started under Carter, that Israel started getting more than $3 billion a year. Now it's getting $4 billion a year in military aid. Right? But Reagan, despite his support for Israel, considering it a strategic asset, when Israel invaded Lebanon and started bombing Beirut, even not as much as it's bombing Gaza today, President Reagan got on the phone with Prime Minister Begin at the time and said, you need to stop the Holocaust against Beirut. An American president telling an Israeli prime minister, you need to stop the Holocaust, which was the bombing, the continuous bombing in Beirut, which doesn't even compare to the bombing of Gaza today, right? And 6 or 7, starting with UN Security Council Resolution 508, 509, I believe 511, 512, 515, 517, the United States either voted for the UN Security Council resolution or abstained. And all of these resolutions had to do with stop the fighting. Israel needs to withdraw from Lebanon, stop the bombing in Beirut, allowing for humanitarian aid, end the collective punishment against Lebanon. That was Reagan, the most staunch then American president in support of Israel. Now we have a genocide unraveling in Gaza. It's been 60 days. It's been compared to some of the worst atrocities in modern times in terms of the killing of children, the attack on hospitals. It's an unraveling genocide, right, in modern day times, in plain sight. And the Biden administration won't get itself, not just to not call for a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire. It won't even say to us whether Israel is or is not today in violation of international law or not.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with the vote. We've got less than an hour to wait. In theory, it might yet change again, but we'll see. Marwan, thanks a lot in the meantime. Thank you.